our last panel. You will still have the chance to hang out towards the end, but ideally you could take your seats slowly but surely so we can have our last panel and also to end on time. Please, thank you for taking your seats. And let me call to the stage Lucy, Daniel, and Johannes. Please, a warm welcome and an applause. Take a seat. Wait, one of them went missing, no? Do we need another chair? No, we don't. I can stand. You can, no, sit, have a seat. Yeah, last man standing. So let me briefly introduce our fantastic panelists for the last panel and also final slot of our, I thought, pretty exciting program today. Up, there comes another chair. Thank you, Chris. Glad to have with us Lucy. Lucy Czachowski is Policy Officer AI and Cloud at Bitkom. So Bitkom, Germany, very known digital association. As a consultant for AI and cloud computing, you're part of the AI and data team, which deals with these topics as well as data economics and data management and artificial intelligence and data protection. And previously you were a co-founder, I thought this was interesting, of an AI startup yourself. As well as in your background, you were an analyst with the United Nations International Civil Aviation Organization and, fittingly, an IT project manager at Lufthansa Technik in Hamburg. And you hold a degree in data science and AI. Thanks for being here, Lucy.
Thanks for having me.
Next, we have Dr. Daniel Schwabe from PTB. So I don't know how to translate this ideally, but I think it's Physical, Technical, Federal Agency, Physikalisch-Technische Bundesanstalt in Germany. So the leading metrology organization in Germany, where Daniel is coordinator of digital medicine with PTB here in Berlin. And you serve also as the project lead for TÜV-Health, which stands for Testing and Experimentation Facility for Health, AI and Robotics. So of course robots are not just humanoids and shop floor warehouse solutions, but we also have a lot of medical devices in this field of AI and robotics. And Daniel leads this consortium where, by the way, also TÜV AI Lab and other partners, we can get to that, are a part of that.
Just
for PTB, you lead it. You're not the lead of the 50 partner consortium, even though you could surely pull this off. This will be your future professionally. No, just kidding. But you are the project lead for PTB of TÜV-Health. And from the background, Daniel obtained his doctorate from Max Delbrück Center, also here in Berlin, but previously studied a master's in mathematics with Humboldt University, as well as a master's degree semester abroad in mathematics at the University of the Eiffel Tower. No, sorry, at the University of Pierre and Marie Curie in Paris. And Dr. Johannes Bendler is the new CTO of our TÜV AI Lab team, which you have already met today. Self-described tech addict and builder of scalable products. You currently work with the lab as a CTO since May 2025, this year. And before joining the lab, you were CTO of Bits and Birds, as well as other positions, and studied at University Freiburg, where you obtained your PhD in economics, actually, in 2015, completed a master's in computer science beforehand, and you also hold a BA in computer science, of course, from Baden-Württemberg Cooperative State University. And I thought, to kick off this panel, we should really directly catch up with Zilko's last input on robots, and I just wanted to have a raise of hands for everybody who still has the enthusiasm to remain in this audience. Thank you for that at this late hour, early before the well-deserved weekend. Who here has been in an Amazon warehouse? One person. Who here has touched a Boston Dynamics robot? Okay, so this reality is already out there, right? Next-gen AI and robotics, it is already out there. Or like the science fiction author William Gibson has said, the future is already here. It's just unequally distributed. Some of us have visited such a warehouse. Who here has visited a Gigafactory from Elon Musk? We have one here in Brandenburg. Who here has visited it? No one. So while some of us have no touch to this reality, in some dimensions we have already occasionally seen it, or even a few of us have had a contact with such a product. And so the question is, how near are we really when we're talking next-gen AI products and robotic solutions? And I just wanted to ask, we are slowly approaching Christmas time, so of course the wish list gets longer. Just on a personal note, like what is the robotics or AI solution that you are personally most interested in at the moment? Maybe we start with you, Lucy.
Good question. So, I mean, obviously I have more the industry outlook. So we recently actually published a paper on industrial AI use cases and have some of them also on our website. And there are several very interesting ones. And one of them is basically having an automation system to really develop and improve the development of the vehicles, so AI-powered vehicles, and I think that's quite interesting. And what I think is really crucial in that regard is that it was developed between industry and research. So having this partnership is probably where the success lies. So I think also regarding other solutions, that's definitely the path that we should take.
Johannes.
So I've had my hands to quite some algorithms and quite some solutions, but something I haven't been in contact with is large behavioral models, and I would really love to have a closer look there, dive a bit into, see how they work, what the differentiations are to like the other models that we see, because I think there's so much technology emerging in such a fast pace that it's hard to catch up and keep up with the pace. So better early than late. So maybe it's time this Christmas to just look into the papers a bit.
Yeah, absolutely. Perfect point. It's really hard to say what's the next big thing, because in 2 months maybe that's already outdated again. One thing, I mean, I come mostly from the medical field, so I can mainly speak for that, aside from a personal note. But for us in the medical field, we see actually a bit of a gap between what you use in your everyday life and how much that the AI has advanced and actual implementation into medical devices. The companies are partly still catching up with some of the technology, and also I recently heard some talks about really foundational models for medical applications like image processing, which is not something that is totally broad scale yet. So this is something I would be interested in how that plays out, if this will manage to actually be implemented in a broad scale. Could help hugely with healthcare provision, if done correctly, if implemented correctly. So yeah, it's something to look out for.
Yeah, for me, I don't know if you know this social media quote. I was hoping for AI to do my dishes so I can be more creative, and what I got was AI that's super creative, more than me, but it's still not doing my dishes. So the idea that from this video that Zirko just showed us with the, I think was on the cover of Time magazine, the figure AI robot that appears to be a very leading example of these large behavioral networks and the fusion of hardware and the LLMs and the software. Yeah, again, this seems to be an American company. So let's start by discussing this issue that we have for our panel today. How do we get from lab to market so our Christmas wishes become true? With a very simple question: where do we stand at the moment in Europe, in your opinion? And to really, because there's always a danger on the panels to be everybody agreeing, yeah, we need more of that. Would we actually have needed less of regulation in Europe? So in other words, did we do us a favor or a disfavor with working for years on the EU AI Act and now having challenges, which can be overcome, but challenges in implementing and actually auditing AI practices down the road? Let's start with you, Lucy. What do you hear from the companies in your association?
Yeah, so we were actively also taking part in in giving feedback to the Commission. When it came to the AI Act, we were pretty active when it came to like shaping the code of practice as well. So we're obviously not against regulation, and the AI Act is definitely a good way forward. But even our members, so we represent over 2,300 companies here in Germany in the digital space, so to say, and we honestly see half of them like the AI Act, and the other half is like, okay, no, we should get rid of it. So I think we have this like split opinion in our membership, but overall, and what we also think is pretty good, that the recently announced digital omnibus, which is like a simplification package, which not only targets the AI Act, but also GDPR and the Data Act, can definitely help and also delay the timelines, which is in favor to SMEs, to startups, to not the big companies that have the capacity and the resources to actually comply to these to the regulation, and I think that's good. I mean, for us, obviously, it's always important to take the opinions of companies and the industry in general very early on in the process, and include that in mind when you try to regulate, especially in this very specific example, we try to regulate a technology which is continuously improving and evolving, which is, I mean, no easy feat. But I think in general, yes, I mean, our members are split, so but in general, I would say that it probably in the future, hopefully, does more good than harm. Now I think that yeah, we should focus on making the industry, I guess, enable them to become better and play in the, AI race, or be competitive.
So one aspect of speed to market is obviously compliance acceleration for companies, and not just the big companies, but also SMEs, which are like the backbone of the German economy as well, and in Europe and many places. And so if I understand you correctly, the tendency in your membership is not whether to regulate AI, but it really boils down to how to regulate AI. And one aspect of that is, of course, the role of the TÜV. So Johannes, how are you preparing for this from your role as a CTO?
I mean, the regulation changes that we will be facing in the next couple of years are deep and impactful, I think. First of all, the EU AI Act is like the important thing that mirrors our common European values, because AI applications have like really, really deep societal and individual impacts. So, and we have to make sure that they are, like, the applications are conform with what we as a community and society want to see and live in. But for the regulation, systems are evolving really fast. We are in kind of a transactional assessment area right now, and we are preparing our tools and our workflows, our streams towards something more agile, something more adaptable to changing technology, something more modular to also cover those pieces of effects that we see from the regulation and effects on the society that we want to assess at that moment. So we're kind of getting away a bit from this one transactional assessment with like one clear list to something that is more dynamic, and that's what we're preparing for, of course, in a digital solution.
And of course, TÜV and BSI and applied research, like at Fraunhofer's many places elsewhere, is part of a broader quality infrastructure, right? And so, whilst I understand that at TÜV AI Lab, it's also not just about testing products, which of course the AI Act is a product legislation at the end of the day, but it's also a lot about processes, right? About checking and auditing a lot of processes. But still, at the end of the day, you do need to have some kind of benchmark, something to really hold on to. And especially so in the medical domain, where it's all about life or death in many cases. If I have a AI-supported heart maker, I really don't want that to malfunction. Neither would I like to malfunction a Boeing 377 from Lufthansa. So Daniel, obviously this question is for you. How do you prepare at PTB in terms of metrology being a central component of our quality infrastructure?
Yeah, it's really an interesting time, I think, for us. Like you say, quality assurance is one of our core values and our core drivers. And at the same time, I totally agree with what has been said. It's regulation currently is a difficult field. I also hear a lot of regulation fatigue in general, which can be understood. At the same time, it's all about ideologies, you know, like Europe has always gone this route of regulating products in comparison to the US, for example, where everything is let the market do whatever the market wants. We definitely feel like it's a little bit too simple to just always to always criticize regulation. Regulation is typically intended to be good. The question is about how you go about it. When you put regulation in place, this also typically speeds up development of understanding of technology. If we wouldn't have regulation of AI, the AI Act, half of the startups that are now springing up about how to validate and test AIs probably wouldn't exist because they wouldn't have a market. This drives the understanding of AI forward, makes the products better and safer, in the end benefiting those that use it, patients in the end, and making products safer. Without regulation, maybe we'll arrive at that point also, but probably 10, 15 years later. And then things happen in the meantime, you know, like think about the completely unrelated, but the submarine, the Titan, that imploded. This is a field that is simply not regulated in the US. You know, like people can do whatever they want there. This wouldn't be possible here, and you kind of have to ask the question, like, what kind of society do we want to live in? We definitely support the let's put regulation in place where it's necessary, but of course let's not stop the market. Let's try to use regulation as something positive. Let's try to turn this into something that companies also can use as a marketing tool, you know, to show their whatever quality label that we can provide, that we are of course also working towards internally. We are particularly interested in the quality of the data used, the quality of the model in a quantitative way. You know, we talked about before monitoring, human oversight after deployment. We need tools that concretely quantify this, like to put in place and understand why certain limits shouldn't be either under or overstepped. And if we manage to arrive at something like that, frameworks and quantifiable evidence, then I think the products will only get better, because you have a benefit not only on the safety of the patient, but also you can market it better because you did do the checks and balances. Yeah.
So auditing as a form of, in terms of signaling theory, as a trust booster, which in turn helps acceptance, which in turn helps market penetration, not just speed to market, but market penetration of new technologies. Now we're talking AI and robotics. So let's get back to the topic of innovation, because I think you're right that we don't want that, what's happening with the submarine in the US. But of course, the US has OpenAI. They have Figure AI. We just saw the video. They have, of course, many leading AI systems, not just in the LLM and LBM frontiers. And we have Black Forest Labs. We do have, right, Lucy? We have had Aleph Alpha. Don't hear so much from them anymore, but I think they pivoted their business model. And we have DeepL from Cologne, for example. So we show that we can have a piece of the pie. But it's always this metaphor of a race, right? We are in a global race. And this race is ultimately not about regulation as an end in itself, but as a means to an end. So a part of regulation has to be innovation. So I totally vibe with what you say about the vibes, that whilst at the initial phases of the AI Act, there was like a whole community enthusiastic about this regulation. Like, yes, we can do this. And now we have the AI Act. end of 2024. But now the vibes have shifted, and we have to take this seriously. It's a race about competitiveness, and it's a race about, ultimately, innovation and existential survival of our, okay, this is getting a bit too far, but democracies and market liberalism, so to speak. So Lucy, what do you think, aside the AI Act rules and requirements, should be instruments to boost innovation in Europe? Could this be regulatory sandboxes or?
I mean, the high-tech agenda by the BMFTR, so the Federal Ministry for Research, Technology and Space, has like specifically mentioned to boost like physical AI, robotics, industrial AI, which I mean is no surprise because the origin of the strategy was in Bavaria, so it kind of makes sense there. But I think it's good that, you know, we have from the ministry and also from the government now the ambition to really do something to enable startups. And as far as I know, the discussions are currently ongoing. So what that actually means and how we can actually enable companies to be part of the competitive space.
Short question.
Yeah.
Do you like Dorothee Beers? She's the research minister in Germany. Do you like her approach of this kind of mission style, roadmap style of the high-tech agenda? This seems to be something a little bit new for Germany, right?
I think that could make sense. Also, the people that we talk to seem very ambitious, which is also a new thing from regarding the research ministry. So in the past, you know, sometimes it felt like it was very research heavy, research focused, but you know, I mean, regarding the ministries and their ambition, it's, I mean, crucial as much as the strategy on how well the ministries work together. So the Ministry for Digitalization and State Modernization, they are basically responsible for AI in general, but you know, obviously they have to work really closely with the research ministry. Same goes with the Ministry for Economic Affairs. So this is also like a very political political discussion that, you know, is sometimes hard to come to concrete measures that support. And in general, I would say that we often lose ourselves into like fragmented initiatives rather than pooling the resources, the money to really enable bigger projects. So I think that could be something. So this week, the Sprint announced like an initiative with a price tag of, I think, around 1 billion euros to enable the development of frontier AI models that they support. And I think that's a great initiative, and something like that in the robotics space could make sense, I think, pooling resources and having one specific, whether it's a competition or an initiative with a low entry barrier, so not a long application process, because otherwise startups and SMEs would never, I mean, would never even apply, is something that could be pushed from the political side.
Mm-hmm. And this is something that yesterday on a panel here on the AI Act at the TÜV AI-Con, Professor Slusalek from the DFKI also made this point that we need to flexibilize the research support system, and Sprint might be a template for a Blaupause, a template of how to try this. But getting back to the regulatory sandboxes, maybe in your direction, Johannes. So. My understanding is that there are discussions whether this should happen as one sandbox on a national level, as different sectoral sandboxes for, you know, mobility, aviation, business, I mean, finance, different sectors, or at the European level also, because in the digital omnibus, at least, there is a suggestion to also have an AI office, probably supported regulatory sandbox at EU level. Is this something that you're thinking about? What kind of contribution the TÜV might have, or the TIC industry, the testing, inspection, certification industry players like TÜV might have in these types of innovative regulatory sandboxes, Johannes?
first of all, I think they are important on all of the levels, because it depends on the player size and their market they are aiming at. So it's good to have low entry barriers and to have like a safe space to try things. And I could imagine the TIC industry in general, but of course especially the TÜV companies, to accompany those who participate there, along with like the legislative company that they received there, to see whether products or approaches that are tried out in the sandboxes will be certifiable afterwards, or whatever adaptations are required to the processes and to the applications in general. So I think it's like super important. I personally wasn't too aware of sandboxes before I started at the lab, and I have been developing AI solutions before, and I knew there is something like the AI Act. So I think it would be good also for smaller companies to like raise the awareness of the availability of something like that.
And in fact, we might not have to reinvent the wheel, but isn't TEF Health, in my understanding, isn't that a form of a regulatory sandbox-like architecture? Could you comment on that, Daniel?
There are some people that argue that way, that the ideas about how we are working within the project is towards that goal, since we are simply in the situation that we started the project during the writing of the AI Act, which is not yet a legislation. At the same time, we're trying to develop services that can support then the certification of the AI product. And in principle, I agree. I think it's great to see these types of initiatives, the Mission AI, the Sprint, the AI regulatory sandboxes. I think it's great to see, new approaches to how can we make sure that regulation and quality assurance is better handled in the future for new technology. So I'm a big fan of the idea of the AI regulatory sandboxes. I think they should be at some point rather fragmented. That's my personal opinion, because the conversations that we have, you can see that the ideas on what a regulatory sandbox can be are extremely diverse. It depends on who you talk to. I personally think you can have different sandboxes that each have a specific goal, and this is probably a better idea than having a gigantic thing again, where then the goal is kind of like unclear. And I think this is the problem, that regulation gives rules that are unclear. How exactly can we put this into practice? And if we now put up sandboxes that again just try to do everything at the same time, you again will end up with way too horizontal guidelines on how to do that. So we would advocate to make it concrete, go into concrete examples, make goals smaller and clear. And I think the fundamental core idea of the sandbox is simply that you try to put all the stakeholders to one table. And this is, I think, one fundamental thing that we still have to learn a little bit in the European field, that this really has a huge benefit down the road. We should be a little bit less careful about, like, mixture of interests at some points. That's why the sandboxes are there. Let's put everybody to the table, then we can talk about what affects certain measures, certain frameworks, certain regulational changes have on the actual people that either want to use the products or that develop the products. Because if we do not talk to each other, we continue in this system where we now have regulation and there are standards, and kind of the developers are left alone how to implement these standards, and the auditors have different ideas how to implement the standards. I think this system is a little bit old news, and I think these harmonized standards that everybody is waiting for, I'm very doubtful whether these will be the answer to everything, since the application of AI is on such a broad scale. At the same time, the use cases are so specific, have such particular requirements, you will after these harmonized standards are there, you will still need an extra step for guidelines on practical implementation. And I think this is where the red sandboxes can come in to try out concrete frameworks, tools, methods. How do I, with my product, go about actually showing compliance? And then we can abstract from there once we investigate it.
Mm-hmm. I have one last question, but I would encourage a couple of questions from the audience as well to make best use of our time. So what I took away from the panel so far is we need to have some kind of future-proof regulation for the real risks of AI. We need to have audits for acceptance and certification for trust. That's all a given. And ideally, we also have some form of innovation instruments like regulatory sandboxes, but they are not the silver bullet that solves everything. They have to be a part of the puzzle, which also includes the Apply AI strategy, the Invest AI, the AI gigafactories, but let's not have an AI giga regulatory sandbox, but let's have like a more federated approach to this. That's what I took away so far. But one elephant in the room to me seems to be that, of course, the nature of AI systems is super dynamic. You touched upon post-market monitoring already. How can we speed up and also make certification and ongoing continuous monitoring more agile? Isn't that also a big issue for us, the TÜV or the metrology and companies ultimately? Maybe start with you, Johannes.
Yeah, I mean, I think I said it before already that we need to move towards agile conformity and agile assessments, because the pace not only of emerging new tech, but also of iterations of models, of versions of software and AI systems is so high that you can't just do transactional assessments like once a week and then like do a full assessment every time. That just doesn't work. So of course we need to change that. And like we from our side, like in Europe, we have the innovation, we have the rules, and we try to connect these two sides with like the operational middleware, and we try to establish repeatable playbooks and go more agile and be as far as possible technology agnostic there.
So that's where Björn Schäfer's overused word of platform, I guess, comes in for you as a CTO, very concretely speaking as well, right? It's not about pushing around PDF documents, but we somehow need to ideally digitize this pipeline.
I mean, you need to catch the processes up at a point where they are at the moment. So of course we have to start with something people are comfortable with, and so we start with like a documentation format, but our goal is to integrate everything into a platform that provides not only the guidance but also the support for the auditors during audits, with AI support, with semantic search across all standards, all norms, all regulatory and sectoral regulatory requirements as well, to bring everything together and have the measures and the tools in place to actually do an end-to-end conformity assessment. That is the transactional part, but of course also do the groundwork for continuous assessment and continuous monitoring of evolution of a system, and then also frequent reassessments and like a continuous assessment in the end.
Lucy, anything to add, or do we have questions from the audience?
I'll actually make it short. I honestly have nothing to add. I think that's definitely a good approach. I think what would be helpful is to have like a kind of best practice scenario, and I don't know if there's anything in place already that we can, I guess, take as a blueprint.
I think there's a lot of initiatives working on those. Like that's exactly what people are trying to produce right now. These demonstrators where we can try out stuff, which then we can abstract from. So I totally agree. Go ahead. No. Okay, I totally agree with with what you said. We need to be more agile. And I think this is also a key. I think all involved parties need to be willing to rethink their processes. And some regulations have been on the market for longer. They were written in a time where we didn't have such fast evolving technology, but I actually see that there's a lot of people involved in either regulation or in industry that are willing to rethink their methodologies, especially also using the technologies, the AI large language models in order to improve the processes that are in place, because we have more productivity on that end now. Some of these processes are because they are limited by human capacity, you know, and I think this is a good time to do this. Digitization is one of the main aspects, but at the same time thinking about modularizing certain aspects and not having such a sequential episode of regulation, so that when you find things that are faulty, that you can then feedback this earlier to the developers, and by that save everybody time and money.
Or ideally in real time even, that would be very interesting. Do we have questions from the audience? Yes, from I think University of Delft, TU Delft, yes.
Thank you very much for an interesting discussion. I have a question about the control systems in robotics. As we see in the recent development, the more machine learning based control is developing. And my question is, how are we going to certify that? How are we going to assert that those policies, the control policies, are safe in the deployable environment? Do you have any idea how we could approach this problem?
Any takers?
Can you repeat what exactly, which type of systems we're talking about?
So, so machine learning based control systems like reinforcement learning policies that to control the robot, or imitation learning policies to also control the robot. And basically, do you have an approach to certify, to assert the safety of such systems? Because they're very complex and they depend on a use case, basically.
And you don't think that they are kind of bound under the AI Act, or?
There could be, but the idea is basically they're very dependent on a use case. They're gonna change with the different variables when they come into a place. And right now they're very hard to even assert given repeatability of this. So
right. I mean, from our perspective, then the importance about certifying such products is really to clarify the parameters that need to be fixed. You know, like you need to assess which of the variables that you have, like the choice of use case, do I need to fix, and which ones can I abstract from? Like if the system fails in one scenario, works in the other, then I can only certify it for the second scenario, and I have to then put in place certain predetermined change. Alex knows the word better here, the protocols. What has to happen, what do I have to change so that I can also apply this later on maybe to scenario A? Like, what are the thresholds where I accept the performance of that system? I think this is a very important thing, and this is always twofold. It's on the one hand, you have the documentation side, the transparency and so on, and on the other hand side, which we hope we can support, is really a quantitative side. You need to check and evaluate the performance, not just like how often is the system right, but like how robust is it, how fair is it, how dependent on the system variables is it, when does the performance start to deteriorate. If we understand that, then we can build also a good system for testing and certifying these products.
Thanks, and I think it also goes down to the operational design domain, right? It's the same with autonomous cars. Like, can they only drive the test track or on actual roads and so on? We could delve deeper in so many aspects, I think, with this panel, but we won't, because we also want everybody to get home on time. So last question and round with a short answer. You wake up after Christmas. You are the Europe's digital Tsar with full executive powers. What's the one thing you do tomorrow to accelerate the speed to market of next generation AI and robotics after everything we've talked about and learned today at the AI Forum 2025? Maybe we start with you, Lucy.
Can I only say one thing?
Of course.
Okay, so what we are currently, focus on and think is definitely, or has the biggest gap and will have the biggest gap in the next few years, is actually compute and like physical infrastructure to be able to, not only like train models, but also develop them. We actually had, so this is not short, but so we actually had a different discussion with stakeholders on AI infrastructure, and one thing that we also talked to and about the whole value chain when it came to chips and so on was actually like physical AI and the bottleneck that the access to compute provides as well. And I think it's slowly taking more prioritization also in politics and industry, but there's still so much skepticism. So having that, and I think there's nice projects. We will see how the telecom and NVIDIA industrial AI cloud will develop. And I also hear that there are some robotics companies involved in the project as well. So I'm pretty excited to see what happens in that regard.
Thank you. Jonas.
I would actually start with another standardization that we don't have yet. I think we need to be transparent towards the providers as well. So if they know what kind of documentation, in what format, in what level of detail, and down to what metrics on what model they need to provide to know that they will likely be accessible at all, like they have everything in place and they can just start getting the assessments, that will be something I think we should also build transparency and be transparent toward the providers, so there will be some kind of standardized documentation and metrics application.
Yeah, in the end, unfortunately, typically it comes down to funding, to money. For compute, for transparency, because I would also, obviously, due to my background, we need research projects that clarify how to go about putting in place frameworks, finding out how this works, putting in place research projects between industry and researchers, because this is what we see. We really we try to engage with especially SMEs currently, and the problem is either that they don't see the point because they don't develop the products yet, or don't really foresee the impact of the AI on their own work, or they say we do not have the capacity, we do not have the funding to get ourselves involved in a research project which maybe pays out in the long run because we have more regulatory understanding in 5 years, but we are trying to get the products into market right now. And this is often the problem because especially the small companies that are the innovation drivers, they are very tight on budget. They think rather in half a year terms and not in 5 years like the big companies. And we have to really make sure we don't forget about this part of industry, and that we let the big drivers, which are unfortunately very much profiting unproportionally from the AI boom, the Siemens Healthineers and Philips, which are great companies, but they have the data. They have all the systems in place already, and we have to be careful that there's not such an imbalance, because we need the innovation drivers. So making sure there's funding for projects where this stuff can actually be put into practice by small companies, that would be great.
Thanks to everybody. I fear we have to have a panel after the panel, but we can, because now the AI forum ends. So let's give a hand of applause to our great speakers for the last panel.